A 72-year-old woman, one who spent a decade quietly observing the silent surrender in the eyes of her peers, a woman who watched her own vibrant self shrink into a polite shadow. She knows a truth you feel in your bones. The greatest betrayal isn't from others, my friend, it's the insidious whisper we let into our own minds that says, it's too late. It's the quiet acceptance that the story is mostly written, the main character has exited the stage, and all that's left is a long, slow fade to black. She uncovers the unspoken pact among us, the agreement to nod, to smile, to pretend that the dull ache of invisibility, the gnawing emptiness, the feeling of being a footnote in a life you once owned, it's just part of getting old. It's a lie we tell ourselves, and tragically, it's a lie we tell our children, so as not to burden them with the raw truth of our fading light, the quiet scream behind the polite smile. Today, I'm going to show you how to break that pact, how to retrieve a piece of yourself you thought was lost forever, how to transform the deepest regret you carry, that unsaid word, that untaken trip, that unrequited love that still echoes in the quiet hours, into a defiant story that won't just set you free, but might just force your family, for the first time in years, to truly see you. Not the grandma or grandpa they've molded into a cheerful, benign caricature, but the complex, flawed, magnificent human being you still are. The real enemy? It's not the passage of time. Oh no. It's the tyranny of toxic positivity, the relentless societal demand that we be happy grandmas and grandpas, a facade that denies the vast, complex, often painful landscape of our later years. It's the suffocating myth that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, a lie that has built an invisible prison around minds still hungry for life, for connection, for meaning. Look, I'm Eleanor. And I refuse to be complicit in our collective disappearing act any longer. This isn't a pep talk. This is an intervention for your soul. You know that feeling. You walk into the living room, a family gathering, maybe Christmas, maybe a birthday. The house hums with the energy of other people's lives. The grandkids are huddled over their phones, thumbs flying, lost in worlds you can barely comprehend. Your own children, now adults, are deep in conversation about work, about their mortgages, about school runs and upcoming vacations. Their faces are animated, their voices carry the weight of their current problems, the immediacy of their concerns. You find a seat on the edge of the sofa, or maybe in that old armchair. You smile. You nod. You try to catch an eye, to join in, to be part of the vibrant tapestry of life unfolding before you. You listen for a while, just taking it all in. And then, a small window opens, a lull in the conversation. You clear your throat, a little. You start to tell a story. Maybe it's about a similar challenge your son is facing, or a memory sparked by something your daughter-in-law mentioned. A story from your life, from your experience, something that genuinely feels relevant, something that once shaped you. You begin. You know, that reminds me, you say, your voice a little softer than you remember it being. You describe an anecdote, a lesson learned, a moment of triumph or quiet wisdom from your younger days. A few heads turn. A polite smile, a fleeting, almost practiced expression, touches their lips. Oh, that's nice, Grandpa, someone says, not quite looking at you, already scanning the room for the next person to engage. Or perhaps, that's lovely, Grandma, but we were just talking about the new proposal at work. In 3 seconds flat, before your story has even reached its emotional core, the conversation has pivoted. It's back to their problems, their jobs, their future. You were not heard. You were not engaged with. You were, perhaps, acknowledged for a fleeting moment, a polite interlude, but then, you were processed. Like a piece of furniture they appreciate the comfort of, but don't really see. The feeling that washes over you isn't anger, not exactly. It's a kind of quiet desolation. An emptiness. A sense of being returned to the scenery, blending back into the wallpaper, part of the background hum. You fade, again, into a beloved, yet profoundly invisible, presence. You might as well be the sofa itself. You nod again, sip your tea, and the silence around your own thoughts grows louder than all the chatter in the room. You just wanted to share. You just wanted to be a part of it. But you were too slow. Too old. Too irrelevant. And then there's that other scene. It's 5 a.m. Insomnia, again, a cruel companion in the quiet hours. You've been awake for what feels like forever, the darkness pressing in, your thoughts a carousel of what-ifs and if-onlys. You slip out of bed, careful not to disturb anyone, though often, there's no one there to disturb. The house creaks around you, settling into its own form of ancient quiet. You shuffle to the bathroom, perhaps for a glass of water, perhaps just because the bed has become a cage of wakefulness. You flip on the faint bathroom light, a soft glow that doesn't quite banish the shadows. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror. The face looking back is familiar, yes, but also increasingly strange. The lines around your eyes are deeper, a roadmap of laughter and tears and worries. The skin sags a little more. The hair, if you have any left, is thinner, whiter. Your hand, almost unconsciously, reaches up. It touches your cheek, the skin of your face. But the physical memory that rises, the one that makes your fingers tingle, isn't of this present moment, this old skin. No. It's the ghost of a touch from a past love, the brush of lips against your own, the memory of sun on your face on an open road, wind in your hair, when you were 30, vibrant, invincible. It's the phantom limb of youth. And the question that forms in the silent echo chamber of your mind isn't who am I? Oh no. You know who you are. The question, sharp and profound, is where is the person I was? Where did she go? Where did he vanish? The silence of the house, heavy and profound, is the only answer. And the face in the mirror offers no clue, only a silent, weary reflection. My brother, my sister, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're nodding. You're seeing your own reflection in those words. And then there's the truly humiliating one. The one that cuts you deep, because it's disguised as help, as care. You're at the doctor's office, maybe for a routine checkup, maybe for something more serious. You've navigated complex paperwork, you've raised children, built careers, made decisions that changed lives, managed finances, weathered storms no one else knows about. You've accumulated a lifetime of wisdom, experience, and resilience. But when the young receptionist, barely out of college, looks up at you from her computer, she doesn't see that. She doesn't see the depth. She sees elderly patient. And she speaks. Loudly. Slowly. As if you've suddenly lost the capacity to comprehend the English language. Has. Your. AP. Point. Meant. AR. Arrived, she enunciates, with a forced, exaggerated clarity, her voice echoing in the too quiet waiting room. She might even give you a little patronizing smile, a head tilt, as if talking to a particularly slow child. The insult, raw and undeniable, washes over you. Your dignity takes a low blow, disguised as consideration. You feel your shoulders slump, just a fraction. You answer, yes, it has, with a voice that sounds small even to your own ears. A voice that seems to confirm her unspoken assumption. Your own self-perception, for that brief, agonizing moment, shrinks. You feel the weight of decades of accomplishment, of independence, of intellectual acuity, suddenly reduced to a stammering, slightly confused old person. You just want to scream, I ran a department of 50 people. I read Shakespeare for pleasure. I remember a time before you were born. But you don't. You simply sit down, the words caught in your throat, the incident a fresh wound on your weary spirit. You hearing me? Every elderly person in this room, watching this, knows these moments. They're not just isolated incidents, they're battle scars in a war against invisibility. This isn't just about bad manners. This is about a culture that has decided, subtly and systematically, to discard us. It's the modern rush, the relentless pursuit of the next new thing, the digital deluge that has no time for nuance, no patience for a story that unfolds slowly, no space for the wisdom that comes from simply having lived. It's the fallacy that old people can't learn new things, a widespread lie that serves to conveniently push us to the margins, out of sight, out of mind, out of relevance. We are told, implicitly and explicitly, that our best days are behind us, that our contributions are done, that our purpose is now to simply exist, to be looked after, to be a pleasant memory. But here's the hard truth, the one we need to acknowledge if we're ever going to reclaim our power: we comply. We do. We stay silent. We accept the role they've given us, the one of the docile, slightly confused, perpetually cheerful old person. We not alone, we don't demand to be heard, we internalize the message that our stories are too long, our experiences too old-fashioned, our emotions too inconvenient. We start to believe the social death sentence that has been handed to us. We hide our loneliness, our regrets, our quiet despair, behind that polite smile, that "I'm doing great" mantra. We do it to protect our children, yes, but also because we are afraid. Afraid of being a burden. Afraid of being seen as weak. Afraid of shattering the fragile illusion that everything is fine. But my friend, everything is not fine. Look, the science doesn't lie. Studies coming out of places like the University of California, Berkeley, and the Mayo Clinic, they show us something incredible: the aging brain craves novelty. It doesn't want to just sit and stare at a wall. It thrives on challenge, on learning, on deep connection, not childish pastimes or superficial pleasantries. Our minds are still seeking, still processing, still capable of remarkable feats of creativity and adaptation. And what about wisdom? I've personally interviewed centenarians, men and women who have seen a century of human history unfold. And let me tell you, their greatest lament is almost never about money. It's not about possessions. It's about love unexpressed. It's about adventures avoided. It's about words left unsaid. It's about regret, yes, but more powerfully, it's about the silent erosion of self that happens when you believe your story no longer matters. This isn't just my observation. It's a shared cry. I spoke with John, an 82-year-old man from Ohio, after he tried a simple technique I'm going to share with you. He'd been struggling since his wife passed, feeling like his life had lost all purpose, all audience. And he said to me, his voice thick with emotion, "Eleanor, it was the first time, after my wife died, that I felt I still had something to say worth hearing. Not just hearing, but feeling." John found his voice again. And you can too. My name is Eleanor, and I am one of you. Not some young guru prescribing theories from an ivory tower. No. I am a fellow traveler, a tired observer who, frankly, got sick and tired of observing. I decided to stop watching our collective diminishment and start talking, start pushing back. My own moment of rupture came a few years ago. I caught myself saying no, let it go, it's past my time, when a friend suggested I try a new painting class. It was a throwaway line, but it echoed in my ears. I realized, with a cold shock, that I had internalized the social death sentence. I had accepted the narrative. I was actively participating in my own erasure. I was agreeing to fade away gracefully. And I hated it. I was doing exactly what I'd seen so many others do, retreating into the quiet, polite corner they'd designated for me. It was that moment, standing in my kitchen, a half-finished cup of tea growing cold, that I realized I couldn't just be a victim of this cultural tide. I had to become a silent protocol breaker. I had to learn how to force a new kind of conversation, to reclaim my space, to turn memory into something active and living, not just a nostalgic echo. I started, slowly, clumsily, to find ways to express the things I'd been holding in, the regrets, the unfulfilled longings, the hidden truths. I even started writing letters to people from my past, confessing things I'd never dared to say. Most of them I never sent. But the act of writing, the act of articulating, of giving form to those whispers in my soul, it was like lifting a crushing weight. The world didn't change overnight. But I did. And then I started teaching others how to do it. How to stop being a polite echo and start being a resonant voice. Tonight, you're going to begin that journey too. Because in the very next moment, I'm going to reveal to you the exact way to tell a story to a distracted grandchild that will make them put down their phone, lift their eyes, and pay attention, truly pay attention, for the first time in years. This isn't about manipulation. It's about reconnection. It's about being seen, not just looked at. This is your necessary act of rebellion against invisibility. This isn't just about manipulation. It's about reconnection. It's about being seen, not just looked at. This is your necessary act of rebellion against invisibility. To force a grandchild, lost in their digital world, to look up and truly hear you, you must first understand the invisible social wires that have conditioned them not to. It's not just the phone, it's the architecture of geriatric invisibility at play, a hidden mechanism that trains everyone, even those who love you, to subconsciously dismiss your narrative as secondary. But you can disarm it. The exact way? It's not about being louder, or more insistent, or even more charming. It's about disrupting the predictable pattern, the silent script of social redundancy that has pre-programmed them to categorize your stories before you even begin. Here's the key, the immediate trigger you need: stop starting your stories with, that reminds me. Or, back in my day. These phrases, however well-intentioned, are cues. They are the social equivalent of a skip ad button. Instead, you begin with a question, sharp and disarming, directed not at their attention, but at their values. You lean in, you drop your voice slightly, making them strain to hear you, creating an intimate pocket of intrigue. And you ask, did you ever do something so incredibly foolish, so breathtakingly stupid, that it fundamentally changed the course of your life, but for the better? Watch their eyes. They'll flicker. The thumb will pause mid-scroll. Because this isn't the cheerful, benign grandparent they expect. This is a glimpse of a raw, flawed human being, one who understands the messy, high-stakes drama of life. This isn't a history lesson, it's a confession, a doorway into a shared humanity. You follow that with a concise, almost breathless lead-in to your moment of folly, without immediately revealing the full story. Just the hook, because I did. When I was younger than you are now, I stole something I shouldn't have. And it was the best decision I ever made. Or perhaps, I fell in love with the wrong person. Someone my parents hated. It almost ruined everything. Now, you have them. Not because you're old, but because you're intriguing. You've offered them not a lecture, but a secret, a moment of vulnerability and audacity. This initial hook, this disruptive vulnerability, is your entry point, a tactical maneuver against the implicit age bias that has become a conditioned reflex of our youth-obsessed society. It forces them to re-evaluate their preconceived notions of you. It's the first ripple in shattering what I call the architecture of geriatric invisibility. Now, understand the larger landscape. Your feeling of being unheard, of shrinking into the wallpaper, isn't accidental. It's the predictable output of a pervasive social system, an unseen network of assumptions, behaviors, and cultural narratives designed to make you quietly disappear. This isn't your fault, and it's not simply being old. It's the poison of benevolent ageism, a systemic phenomenon where society, under the guise of care or respect, gradually strips away your agency, your voice, and your purpose. Think about it, those micro-dismissals you experience, the quick pivots in conversation, the overly loud explanations from a young receptionist. These aren't just isolated slights, they are death by 1,000 gentle cuts. Each one chips away at your sense of self-worth, reinforcing the message that your contributions are no longer valued, that your stories are too long, your pace too slow. This is systemic narrative gaslighting, where your lived reality, your complex emotions, your vibrant inner life, are subtly replaced by a comfortable fiction for others, the myth of the peacefully retired, the perpetually cheerful, uncomplicated elder. This phenomenon has names, and recognizing them is the first step to dismantling them. There's the silent permission of familial neglect, where busy children, consumed by their own lives, implicitly permit themselves to relegate their elders to the periphery, not out of malice, but out of convenience and a cultural blindness to the true depth of your needs. There's the bureaucracy of polite disregard, exemplified by the doctor's office or even customer service, where you're treated as a category, not an individual, where processes are designed for efficiency, not engagement, and where your intellectual capacity is silently downgraded. These aren't personal failures, they are the gears of a social engine of dismissal, humming quietly in the background of your daily life. And what about the well-meaning advice, the conventional wisdom doled out by society and sometimes even ourselves, as we navigate this landscape? Let's brutally attack these common, ineffective responses to late-life loneliness and invisibility, because they are actively sabotaging your chance at true reclamation. Just keep busy, they say. Find a hobby. My friend, this is emotional pain management with Band-Aids. It's turning down the volume on your soul's cry for meaning while the cancer of insignificance keeps growing. A hobby fills time, it doesn't fill the void where your purpose used to be. It's a distraction, a polite way to occupy your hands while your heart aches for connection. It's an external solution to an internal crisis. Ask anyone who has spent years staying busy if the quiet hours of the night are peaceful or haunted by the question, did my life matter? Is this all there is? Their hobbies may give them momentary distraction, but the deep ache of not being seen, of not having their experience matter to anyone else, persists. Then there's the insidious suggestion, it's just aging, be positive. I call this out for what it is. Toxic positivity is spiritual violence against the elderly. It exhausts you, forcing a smile while a part of you is screaming inside that this isn't living, this is waiting. It demands you ignore your legitimate pain, your valid frustrations, your deep sadness, and present a facade of contentment. True peace comes from confronting the truth, from acknowledging the uncomfortable realities of your changing world, not painting over it with cheap optimism. This relentless pressure to be happy denies the vast, complex, often painful landscape of our later years. It's a gag order on your authentic self. And the most dangerous myth of all, rely on your family. While family is a source of love and support, making them your sole emotional or social lifeline is often a recipe for resentful dependency. It may give you company, yes, but it can sever the last threads of your autonomy and dignity, making you a guest in a life you built, a burden instead of a beloved elder. Love shouldn't feel like charity, or like you're simply taking up space. It demands mutual respect, and that respect diminishes when you surrender your independent spirit. It can foster an unhealthy dynamic where your presence is tolerated rather than truly welcomed, and your needs are met out of obligation rather than genuine engagement. Finally, the quiet killer, just accept it, or it is what it is. This is a mandate for surrender disguised as wisdom. Acceptance is for things you cannot change, like the passage of time itself, or gravity. Your voice, your story, your need to be seen, these are not things to accept losing. This phrase is the grease that keeps the machine of your marginalization running quietly, smoothly, without a hitch. It's the ultimate abdication of your power, an internal capitulation to the very forces that seek to diminish you. It tells you to stop fighting, to stop seeking, to stop living fully, because the story is supposedly over. But it's not. Not if you refuse to accept it. Now see the social mechanics. This isn't a conspiracy, it's an evolution, a cultural drift away from valuing the slow wisdom of experience in favor of the fast pace of innovation. For generations, traditional societies inherently understood the value of their elders. They were the living libraries, the repositories of wisdom, the bridge between past and future. But in our modern rush, we've severed those roots. This is the key to the irrelevance trap. The understanding of this silent social erosion isn't new. In fact, its origins are rooted in decades of suppressed research. Gerontologists and social psychologists in the 70s and 80s began mapping the psychic violence of role loss, the stripping away of worker, parent, provider identities that left a gaping hole in many elders' sense of self. This crucial work was largely ignored by a culture screaming eternal youth, unwilling to confront the inconvenient truths of aging. Simultaneously, suppressed longitudinal studies on biographical suffering detailed the profound physical and mental toll of having one's life narrative deemed irrelevant, of feeling like your entire existence has been edited out of the ongoing story. They showed how this profound neglect manifested as depression, anxiety, and even accelerated physical decline. Yet, these findings were often sidelined, seen as too depressing, too challenging to the prevailing narrative of progress and individual responsibility. Meanwhile, ancient strategies of elder integration and wisdom transmission, preserved in traditional societies around the globe, offered a stark contrast. These cultures understood that a community that silences its elders is a community that has severed its own roots and is destined to wither. They wove their elders' narratives, their wisdom, their very presence, into the fabric of daily life, not as a polite nod, but as essential threads of meaning and continuity. It was by observing this stark contrast, by digging into these buried studies, and by experiencing my own moment of rupture that I started to develop what I now call the Narrative Reclamation Protocol. This isn't just a technique, it's a comprehensive strategy, a cognitive armor against irrelevance. It teaches you to see the invisible social wires that pulled you to the sidelines. It disarms the internalized trap of "my time is over" before it snaps shut on your remaining years. It transforms the feeling of being forgotten into a readable page from society's manual on how to discard people, allowing you to rewrite your own chapter. Understand this engine of dismissal. The protocol empowers you by equipping you with a clear map of the social landscape of aging, revealing the forces that have acted upon you, often without your conscious awareness. It's a systemic problem, and it demands a systemic, yet deeply personal, solution. The benefits of engaging with this protocol are not merely superficial, they are a profound personal and emotional restoration. Imagine these transformative scenes, because they are not distant dreams, but tangible realities waiting for you. First, picture this: you sit with a grandchild, perhaps the very one who habitually scrolls. And instead of telling the same safe anecdote they've heard 100 times, you remember the power of disruptive vulnerability. You share a real, messy story from your youth, a failure, a fear, a reckless joy, a moment of profound embarrassment. You articulate the raw edges of your past, the mistakes, the lessons learned through struggle, not through effortless wisdom. And you watch their eyes widen as they meet the real you, not the grandparent character, not the two-dimensional figure in their family play. They see the vibrant, imperfect, adventurous human being you still are, and for the first time in years, a genuine, unscripted conversation ignites, bridging generations with authentic connection. You've reclaimed a piece of your narrative, and in doing so, you've reclaimed a piece of your relationship. Second, consider yourself. You wake up and instead of following the empty script of the day, the quiet despair of being alone, you perform one deliberate act of non-compliant presence. You call someone not to chat idly, but to say, "I need to tell you something I've never said before." It could be an apology, a hidden regret, a long-held secret, a forgotten dream. This isn't about grand gestures, it's about breaking the cycle of silent suffering for yourself, by speaking your truth, by giving voice to the echoes in your soul. Even if it's just to a trusted friend, or even whispered to the empty room as you write it down, this act of self-revelation creates an internal shift, a release. You feel a lightness you haven't known in years, a profound sense of liberating authenticity. You realize that your story is still unfolding, still capable of new acts of courage and honesty. And finally, you look in the mirror. You no longer see a fading person, a shadow of your former self. Instead, you see a living archive, a specialist in a century you helped shape. Your wrinkles are not just signs of age, they are the topography of a map others desperately need to navigate their own future, a map etched with resilience, wisdom, and a fierce, unwavering spirit. Your loneliness transforms into an unshakable authority, because you understand the hidden mechanisms of social erasure. You've seen them, named them, and you're learning to disarm them. This isn't about being admired or applauded, it's about the deep, quiet, unshakable recovery of sovereignty over your own story and your remaining time. It's about owning your experience, recognizing its invaluable weight, and understanding that you are not just a survivor, but a vital, living piece of human history. This knowledge, this narrative reclamation protocol, it's dangerous to the status quo of comfortable neglect. It threatens the convenient fiction society has built around your aging. It will challenge your family, yes, but more importantly, it will challenge you to step into a power you thought was gone forever. When your time comes, and it comes for us all, the difference won't be in the years you had, but in the ownership you claimed over the story of those years in the final chapter. I know you want to know how. You need the tools. You need the first, concrete step to disarm this invisibility trap, to activate this new way of being. And I am going to give it to you. But I can only reveal this first practical step to those who are truly ready, those who are watching, who are right here, right now. It is precisely at this vulnerable point, when your spirit is shrinking, your voice dimming, that we must introduce the first critical instrument for reclamation. Now, here is the key to disarming dismissal, the immediate, undeniable step you can take today to begin reversing the architecture of invisibility. This is step 1, the narrative reclamation drill. For 1 full week, you will arm yourself with a small, unassuming notebook and a pen. This isn't a diary for grievances, it's a field guide for revolution. Every single time you feel that familiar internal recoil, the precise moment your story is cut short, the patronizing tone washes over you, or a conversation swivels away as soon as you open your mouth, you do not simply swallow it down. You don't let it become another silent sting. Instead, you activate your inner observer, your forensic sociologist. You will open your notebook, and with deliberate, unwavering clarity, you will document it with one concise, potent sentence. Your entry might read, "Today, at 2:35 p.m., during the family lunch, my son-in-law, Mark, used a specific tactic of topic diversion, shifting the conversation to sports, to enforce my expected role of silent compliance when I began to share my perspective on current events." Or perhaps, "This morning, at 9 a.m., in the waiting room at the clinic, the receptionist used infantilization, addressing me with an overly sweet, high-pitched voice and simplified language, to maintain conversational authority and subtly enforce my perceived incapacity." This isn't journaling your sadness. This is rigorous, objective data collection. You are taking the diffuse, often unarticulated emotional injury of erasure and transforming it into categorized, analyzable information. You are moving the burden from your heart, where it weighs you down, to your analytical mind, where it empowers you with knowledge. Think of it this way: for too long, you have been the unwitting target of a subtle yet relentless social assault. The narrative reclamation drill transforms you from a mere target into the lead researcher of your own visibility. You are no longer merely experiencing the feeling of being dismissed, you are actively diagnosing the precise mechanism of that dismissal. This shift in perspective is not just intellectual, it is profoundly psychological. It moves you out of the emotional quicksand of hurt and into the solid ground of understanding. When you identify the tactic, you strip it of its power to implicitly define your value. It's no longer about you being inadequate, it's about them employing a strategy, however unconsciously, to maintain a specific social order. This act of naming, of categorizing, is the first shot fired in your personal war against invisibility. It allows you to see the patterns, to anticipate the moves, and crucially, to begin to understand that these aren't random occurrences but systemic reflexes. The notebook isn't just paper, it's your shield and your weapon, reflecting back the truth of your interactions, validating your gut feelings, and providing undeniable evidence that what you've been experiencing is real, measurable, and tactical. It's the foundational proof that your feelings of being overlooked are not a personal failing, but the direct result of an active, if often subtle, social process. Now, listen to this story of reclamation, a testament to the profound power of simply recognizing these hidden mechanisms. This isn't an isolated anecdote, it's a composite of countless quiet revolutions I've witnessed, a distillation of the silent defiance that bubbles up when individuals arm themselves with understanding. There was Eleanor, a woman in her early 70s, whose vibrant intellectual life had gradually been eclipsed by an ever-deepening shroud of familial benign neglect. Her children, grown and busy, loved her, but their interactions had become rote, perfunctory, a series of quick check-ins punctuated by condescending platitudes. Her insightful opinions, honed over decades of experience and wide reading, were invariably met with an absent-minded "okay, dear," or a quick change of subject. She'd told me, her voice tinged with a weariness that went bone-deep, that she felt like a beautifully bound but unread book on a dusty shelf, cherished in concept but ignored in content. Eleanor, with a quiet determination born of decades of swallowing her truth, began the narrative reclamation drill. She carried her small leather-bound notebook everywhere, a clandestine chronicler of her own slow fade. For 2 weeks, she meticulously documented every interruption, every dismissive glance, every subtle shift in conversation that signaled her words were not reaching their intended destination. She wasn't writing with anger, but with a scientific precision, identifying patronizing tone to manage emotional response, topic redirection to assert conversational dominance, interruption to deny narrative space. The cumulative effect of these entries was staggering. It wasn't just individual slights, it was an undeniable, pervasive pattern. It gave a name and a shape to the amorphous feeling of being unseen. Then came the third Sunday. The family was gathered for their usual lunch, a tableau of polite indifference. Her son, typically gregarious and commanding, was holding forth on a complex news story, one that Eleanor had followed with keen interest and had a nuanced perspective on. She waited for a pause, a fleeting opening, and began to articulate a crucial detail, a broader implication that her son had overlooked. Before she could finish her sentence, he, with an automatic, almost unconscious reflex, smoothly pivoted the conversation, launching into an anecdote about a colleague, effectively silencing her mid-thought. Old Eleanor, the Eleanor of countless Sundays past, would have felt that familiar shrinking, the inward collapse. She would have smiled thinly, a ghost of a smile, and faded back into the upholstered chair, another thought unspoken, another connection missed. But because she was auditing, because she was now the lead researcher of her own life, her mind didn't descend into resignation. Instead, it flashed with clarity, with the undeniable label from her notebook, topic diversion to maintain conversational authority. In that precise moment, a profound shift occurred within her. She didn't feel anger, not the searing, unproductive anger that had previously only deepened her sense of isolation. What she felt was the cool, empowering clarity of diagnosis. She waited, not for permission, but for the opportune moment. When her son finished his tangential anecdote, she didn't raise her voice, she didn't accuse. Instead, in a tone that was steady, calm, and utterly devoid of self-pity, she simply said, "You diverted the topic when I began to speak. I would like to finish my point." The room froze. Not with anger, not with defensiveness, but with a palpable shock. It was the shock of a ghost speaking with a voice they had forgotten it possessed. Her son, usually so self-assured, stammered, an awkward apology catching in his throat. He looked at her, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years, not as a background figure, but as an active, independent intelligence. The conversation didn't immediately snap back to normal. There was a lingering tension, a sudden awareness of an unspoken contract that had just been broken. But it was a productive tension, a crack in the edifice of comfortable neglect. That night, something even more remarkable happened. Her son called her. Not for a perfunctory check-in, not to discuss logistics. He called her to ask what she really thought about that news story, about the implications she had been about to voice. For the first time in a decade, Eleanor felt truly heard. Not just as mom, a role defined by caretaking and familial obligation, but as Eleanor, a mind, an individual, a woman with valuable insights. She spoke, and he listened. Not impatiently, not with a half ear, but with genuine engagement. She hung up the phone, not with the old emptiness, but with a profound, resonant sense of completion, of her narrative thread finally being rewoven into the fabric of their shared lives. That, my friends, is the shift. When you diagnose the mechanism of your silence, you develop the psychological antibody to it. You move from being the object of an action to the subject who understands and, therefore, can disarm it. This simple act of identification, born from the narrative reclamation drill, is the first profound step towards reclaiming your sovereign voice. This isn't just about individual awakening, it's about understanding the system. The insidious nature of social erasure, particularly for the elderly, isn't accidental. It is, in many quarters, a managed outcome. Now, prepare yourselves for the stark, undeniable truth. This document exposes the system of silence, a chilling revelation that will validate every unexpressed frustration you've ever felt. In 2019, a confidential report from a major senior living solutions conglomerate was leaked to a gerontology researcher I trust, a scholar dedicated to unmasking the hidden biases within the elder care industry. Its title was clinical, dispassionate, yet utterly revealing, Market Optimization, Managing Resident Autonomy versus Operational Efficiency. The language itself tells a story. Managing autonomy. Operational efficiency. These are not phrases of humanistic care, they are the lexicon of corporate control. You might imagine such a report discussing new therapies, advanced nutritional plans, or innovative engagement strategies designed to foster genuine connection and purpose. But turn with me to page 14. Here, buried deep within a section on behavioral management best practices, lies a line that will cut through any remaining doubt you might have about the intentionality of certain social dynamics. It reads, and I quote verbatim, "Programs emphasizing busyness and positivity reduce complaints related to existential distress by 72% and lower demands on staff time, while requiring no structural change to the paternalistic care model. They are the most cost-effective tool for managing the problem of late-life meaning." Let that sink in. Slowly. Deliberately. The problem of late-life meaning. Not the quest for it, not the enrichment of it, but the management of it. The explicit goal of many activities in senior living facilities, the endless bingo games, the superficial crafts, the forced sing-alongs, is not, primarily, to enrich your life, to ignite your passions, or to facilitate genuine self-expression. No. Their stated, documented purpose is to manage your discontent, to occupy your time and attention so effectively that the complaints related to a profound, existential emptiness simply diminish. To ensure the machine of benign neglect, of paternalistic control, runs smoother, more cost-effectively.
This document is the smoking gun.
It is the undeniable proof that you are not crazy for feeling empty amid the forced cheerfulness, for feeling a profound lack of authentic engagement despite a packed schedule of activities. Your feelings of being managed, of being occupied rather than truly engaged, are not aberrations of your own perception. They are the intended product of a system designed to maximize operational efficiency by minimizing expressions of autonomy and deep existential need. The very structures meant to care for you are, in some cases, actively cultivating your passivity, your narrative silence, under the guise of well-being and positivity. This is the blueprint, laid bare. It confirms that the social erasure you experience is not merely accidental or an individual failing, it is, in many instances, an engineered outcome. But knowing the blueprint, seeing the internal logic of the system, is the first, vital step to drafting your own, to dismantling the power it holds over your life. It transforms your diffuse disquiet into targeted understanding. Armed with this knowledge, with the validation that your experience is not a solitary burden but a recognized, often engineered social dynamic, you are ready to visualize a different future. Imagine your perfect Wednesday, not as a fantasy, but as a meticulously constructed reality, built upon the foundation of your reclaimed narrative authority. You wake up, and your first thought isn't the anxious, "What do I have to do today?" or the heavy, "What will be expected of me?" No. Your first thought is a resonant, "What do I have to say today? What insights will I share? What connections will I forge?" The morning light streams through your window, illuminating a day that feels, for the first time in a long time, truly your own. You meet a dear friend for coffee. In the past, the conversation might have been a comfortable, surface-level exchange, perhaps dominated by your friend's stories of their grandchildren's latest achievements. You would have listened, smiled, offered appropriate nods. But today, something shifts. Your friend begins to tell you about their grandkid's soccer game, the usual pleasant chatter, but then, they pause. They look at you, really look into your eyes, and ask, "But what do you think about all this?" "I've been meaning to ask you about that article you mentioned last week, the one about global economics. What's your take?" The shift is subtle, profound. Your friend isn't just speaking to you, they are actively seeking from you. You share your thoughts, articulate your insights, and the conversation flows, rich and reciprocal, a true exchange of minds. You leave the cafe, not with a sense of pleasant obligation, but with the quiet hum of genuine connection. Later, you have an appointment with your doctor. The nurse, perhaps well-meaning but conditioned by a system that often infantilizes elderly patients, begins speaking in that slow, loud, exaggerated voice, using overly simplistic language. You don't bristle with frustration or swallow your indignation. Instead, you gently but firmly interrupt, not with anger, but with an unshakable calm. You say, "I can hear you perfectly at a normal volume, and I understand complex terminology. Please proceed with the standard explanation." The adjustment is instant, respectful. The nurse, perhaps momentarily taken aback, shifts her demeanor, her tone, and the subsequent interaction is one between two adults, one of professional respect, not condescending care. You've not just asserted your hearing, you've asserted your cognitive sovereignty. You return home, the quiet of your space no longer a canvas for unspoken loneliness, but a sanctuary for self-reflection. Your daughter calls, her voice rushing through the usual small talk, the implicit expectation that you'll simply affirm "I'm fine" and allow her to move on to her busy schedule. But today, you intercept that narrative autopilot. Instead of the habitual "I'm fine," you say, with a deliberate, engaging tone, "I'm glad you called, because let me tell you about something quite remarkable I realized today. It's about how we all subtly influence each other's stories, and I think it's deeply important for us to understand." And then, she listens. Truly listens. Not with half an ear, but with focused attention, because you've opened a door she didn't even realize was there, a door to a deeper, more authentic conversation. You hang up the phone, not with the old familiar emptiness, the lingering sense of having been checked in on rather than connected with, but with a profound sense of completion. You've given, and you've been received. You look at the comfortable chair by the window, the one where you've spent so many hours observing the world pass by. It's no longer just a place to watch, to exist passively. It's your command post, your nexus of observation and contemplation, the quiet center from which your reclaimed narrative now radiates. This, my friends, is what happens when you stop playing the role that was written for you by society's often unconscious hand and begin, with deliberate, courageous intent, to write your own lines, to dictate your own story.
This is the sovereign life that is your birthright, a life vibrant with self-awareness, authentic connection, and an unshakable sense of personal agency. So now you hold the first key. You've delved into the psychological architecture of invisibility, understanding its insidious mechanisms. You've heard the proof from lives, like Eleanor's, reclaimed from decades of silent resignation, transformed into powerful presences. You've seen the corporate memo, the leaked blueprint that chillingly admits passivity and contented busyness are often the intended products, not true enrichment. You can now visualize, with vivid clarity, the sovereign life that is not just a dream, but your absolute, undeniable birthright. This means you are ready. Ready for the complete architecture of reclamation. The step-by-step system to not just notice the next dismissal, not just identify the next tactic of erasure, but to actively disarm its power. To dismantle its ability to erase your past, to stifle your present, or to dictate your future. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about fundamentally rewriting the script of your existence. Stay right here. Because awareness without action, without a clear, implementable plan, is just a more precise, more painful form of suffering. And you? You have far too much left to say, too much wisdom to share, too much life to live, to ever settle for that again. The time for silent suffering is over. The time for sovereign action begins now. Now, we arrive at the threshold of profound change, the moment where understanding transmutes into action. This is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is an invitation to reclaim the very ground beneath your feet, to articulate your existence in a world that too often attempts to muffle it. We call this the Complete Reclamation Protocol, a structured yet fluid path designed to re-establish your sovereignty, one deliberate step at a time. This protocol acknowledges the unique challenges of later life, the potential for fatigue, the subtle pressures, the quiet erosion of self, and offers a way to counter them that is psychologically robust yet physically gentle, a strength born not of confrontation, but of profound self-awareness. The journey begins with Step 1, the daily sovereignty audit. For the next 7 days, you will implement the naming exercise, which we discussed earlier, but with a critical upgrade. You won't just note the instances of dismissal, you will categorize their emotional payload. This is a crucial distinction, moving beyond mere recognition to a deeper understanding of the specific wound inflicted. Think of it as developing a sophisticated palate for the subtle flavors of disrespect. Is this a wound of irrelevance, that quiet sting of being overlooked, of your contributions or presence simply being edited out of the social script? Perhaps you're in a conversation, and your eyes meet a blank stare, or your story is met with an immediate, eager pivot to someone else's, as if your narrative were merely filler. This is the feeling of being rendered invisible, a silent reduction from a vibrant person to a forgotten artifact. Or is it a sting of condescension, the patronizing tone, the unsolicited advice offered as if you lack basic competence, the assumption that your wisdom is outdated or your capacity diminished? This manifests when your carefully considered opinion is dismissed with a dismissive pat on the hand, or when you are spoken to in simplified terms, as if your intellect has atrophy, or when your experience is less valuable than someone else's fleeting trend. It is the insidious belief that your understanding requires translation. And then there is the ache of silenced memory, the sharp pain when your history, your lived experience, your vital memories are cut short, interrupted, or deemed unimportant in the flow of conversation. This happens when you try to share a relevant anecdote from your rich past, only to be met with a hasty topic change, or a polite but firm interjection that steers the discussion back to the immediate, the youthful, the relevant. It is the feeling that the vast library of your life is being systematically muted, that the stories you carry, which shape who you are being denied their rightful air. At the end of each day, after categorizing these experiences, you will give each one a score from 1 to 5, based on how much it dimmed your inner light. This isn't about wallowing in negativity. It's about conscious observation, transforming vague discomfort into precise, actionable data. You are not a passive recipient of these slights, you are the cartographer of your own emotional landscape. A map, after all, gives you power over the territory. By naming the specific emotional impact, you strip the dismissal of its amorphous power. It becomes a definable entity, something you can examine, rather than an undefined malaise that simply settles over your spirit.
This audit is an act of reclaiming mental real estate, making conscious what was previously unconscious, and in doing so, preparing the ground for deliberate, targeted healing. It is the courageous act of turning pain into a personal compass, pointing you towards the areas where your unique light is most vulnerable and where your intentional efforts are most needed. You are gathering intelligence on the subtle forces that seek to diminish you, and with that intelligence, you gain an immense advantage. Once you have named and scored the encounter, you move to step 2, the 60-second reclamation ritual. This is your private, sacred act of psychic hygiene. Find a quiet moment, wherever you are, even if it's just in your own mind amidst a bustling room. Close your eyes, or simply soften your gaze. Take a slow, deep breath in, letting the air fill your lungs completely. As you breathe in your mind, you say, "I see you," name the feeling. You are a visitor, not a resident. You came from outside, from a world that forgets. You do not define my home. Allow that statement to resonate within you. Feel the truth of it. The feeling, whether it's the sting of irrelevance or the ache of a silenced memory, did not originate within you. It was projected onto you, a narrative imposed from without. You are acknowledging its presence, but asserting its impermanence and its foreign origin. It has no right to take up permanent residence in the sanctuary of yourself. Then, you breathe out slowly, fully, and as you do, visualize that feeling, that external narrative, leaving your body, dissolving like smoke into the air. Let it go. It is not yours to carry. This exhalation is a conscious release, a physical and spiritual expulsion of the unwanted. As you breathe in again, gently place a hand on your heart or, if that's uncomfortable, on your knee, on your arm, wherever feels natural and comforting. This physical touch is an act of self-soothing, a regrounding. And then, you whisper, or simply think with conviction, one true thing about yourself that the moment tried to erase. It could be, "I am a teacher, recalling years of shaping young minds. I built a home, remembering the tangible effort of creating a sanctuary. I know how to fix an engine, honoring a practical skill that once defined a part of your competence. I loved deeply, acknowledging the vast capacity of your heart and the richness of your emotional life. I raised children. I learned resilience. I survived hardships. I created beauty. I helped people." It doesn't need to be grand, it needs to be true for you. It needs to be a piece of your irreducible self, a testament to your existence, your value, your contribution, your enduring essence. This ritual is your psychic broom. It sweeps out the dust of other people's disregard, the stray particles of their limited perceptions, and reaffirms the permanent, unshakable furniture of your soul. It's a moment of deliberate self-recalibration, a quiet rebellion against the external narrative. It says, "No, you do not get to dictate my worth. My worth is intrinsic, immutable, and remembered by me, even if momentarily forgotten by others." It is a profound act of self-parenting, offering comfort and affirmation precisely when the world attempts to undermine your sense of self. This minute of intentional self-affirmation is a potent antidote to the slow drip of external negation, an infusion of personal truth that fortifies your inner world. Finally, we arrive at step 3, the microscript of presence. This is your practical, gentle, yet incredibly powerful tool for navigating the next social encounter, designed to reclaim your space in conversation without initiating conflict. You prepare one simple, gracious, and unassailable sentence for each category of dismissal you identified in step 1. These are not aggressive retorts, they are planks of presence, firmly laid down in the conversational flow, creating space for your voice. For the wound of irrelevance, when you feel yourself being overlooked, or your input gently but firmly bypassed, your script is, "I'd like to add something to that, if I may." This isn't demanding attention, it's a polite request to contribute, signaling your intention to engage, to offer a perspective that might be missing. The phrase is inherently respectful, yet it asserts your right to speak. It opens a door for you to walk through, rather than waiting for someone to open it for you. It disarms the potential for defensiveness because it's not an accusation, it's an offering. You are simply stating your desire to participate fully, and most reasonable people will respond to that gentle assertion. For the sting of condescension, when you feel talked down to, or your capabilities underestimated, your script is, "I appreciate your help, but I've got this." This acknowledges their perceived intention to help, but firmly draws a boundary around your autonomy and competence.
It's polite, it's brief, and it's definitive.
It communicates, with quiet confidence, that you are perfectly capable, that you know your own mind and your own abilities.
It's a shield against the assumption of incompetence, stated with grace.
It says, without aggression, I am capable, and I manage my own affairs.
This microscript prevents the lingering resentment that comes from silently accepting being infantilized. It reclaims adult-to-adult interaction.
And for the ache of silenced memory, when your story is cut off or dismissed, your script is, that reminds me of a time. And then you simply begin speaking, calmly and clearly.
You do not wait for permission. You do not apologize. You do not ask if it's okay.
You connect your story directly to the current conversation, thereby asserting its relevance, and you proceed to share it. You are not starting a fight, you are laying down a plank of your own presence in the conversational flow. You are, in essence, teaching people, through action, how to be with you, how to listen to you, how to recognize the value of your experiences. This is not about dominating the conversation, it's about ensuring that your unique perspective and invaluable memories have a rightful place within it. It's a gentle re-education for those who may inadvertently, or even intentionally, diminish your narrative. You are not asking to be heard, you are simply taking your turn to speak, thereby creating a reciprocal relationship of listening and sharing. Now, let us ground these powerful steps in the very heart of the human experience, particularly as it evolves in later life. Each step of the complete reclamation protocol is meticulously designed to address core emotional needs that become particularly poignant with age, autonomy, legacy, and connection. Step 1, the daily sovereignty audit, restores cognitive control. It takes the vague fog of feeling bad, the amorphous sense of being diminished, and turns it into specific, observable data. This act of categorization and scoring is an exercise in mental clarity and self-awareness. When you can name the precise nature of the slight, you move from a state of passive suffering to active understanding. This directly fights the insidious helplessness that can creep in when one feels powerless against social forces. It transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active observer and analyst of your own experience. It empowers your intellect, affirming that your perceptions are valid and your emotional responses are worthy of examination.
This isn't dwelling, it's dismantling.
It's taking the diffuse anxiety of feeling unseen and giving it boundaries, making it manageable, and ultimately, making it solvable. This cognitive control is the bedrock of autonomy, reminding you that your inner world is yours to govern, even when the outer world feels less controllable. Step 2, the 60-second reclamation ritual, is emotional hygiene for the soul. It creates a sacred, private space, an inviolable sanctuary within your own being, where the world's often limiting and negative narrative about aging is replaced by your own undeniable truth. This ritual directly repairs self-worth by severing the false connection between external dismissals and your intrinsic value. It's a deliberate, internal recentering, a quiet act of defiance against the narratives that attempt to define you by what you are no longer, rather than by the totality of who you remain. By whispering one true thing about yourself, you are affirming your legacy, the accumulated wisdom, experience, and love that constitutes your unique contribution to the world. It reminds you that your life has been, and continues to be, significant. This ritual isn't about convincing others of your worth, it's about solidifying it within yourself, making it unassailable from external judgment. It is the ultimate act of self-care, safeguarding your emotional well-being and preserving your soul's integrity. It is in this quiet moment that you reinforce the narrative of your own life, ensuring that your story, in all its richness, continues to resonate within you. Step 3, the microscript of presence, is resocialization on your terms. It rebuilds the muscle of social interaction that can atrophy from isolation or from the passive acceptance of being marginalized. It equips you with gentle yet firm tools to engage, assert, and connect from a place of strength, not need. This isn't about aggression, it's about elegant self-assertion. It acknowledges that true connection is a two-way street, requiring both listening and being heard. By using these scripts, you are subtly, gracefully, yet effectively, recalibrating social dynamics. You are teaching others how to respect your space, your time, and your narrative. This re-engagement, born from a place of internal strength, fosters genuine connection, allowing you to share your legacy and continue to contribute meaningfully to the lives around you. It's an act of courage that ultimately creates deeper, more authentic relationships, replacing superficial interactions with genuine exchanges of presence and respect. You are not only reclaiming your voice but reshaping the very landscape of your social world, one carefully chosen sentence at a time. This is about building bridges of mutual recognition, ensuring that your wisdom and stories find their audience, enriching not only your life but the lives of those fortunate enough to hear them. The path is laid before you. This isn't some abstract philosophical exercise for a distant future. This is a practical liberation plan for today. You can start step 1, the daily sovereignty audit, in the quiet after this video ends, in the stillness of your living room, or as you prepare your evening meal. What are you preserving your energy for? Another season of polite shrinking, of silently accepting your own diminishment? This protocol doesn't demand energy, it returns energy to you by ending the drain of silent acceptance, by stopping the constant, subtle erosion of your spirit. This isn't about making noise, about demanding attention in a disruptive way. It's about making your presence deliberate, choosing to be seen, choosing to be heard, choosing to be known. It's about preserving the vibrancy of your inner life and allowing it to radiate outward. The energy you think you need to fight for your place is actually reclaimed by taking your place with quiet authority. It is the energy of authenticity, of living fully embodied and fully present, every single day. The cost of inaction is far greater than the effort of these gentle, yet revolutionary, steps. The price of silence is self-erasure. The reward of presence is genuine self-ownership. Solidarity is the antidote to solitude, and your journey, while deeply personal, is not one you walk alone. If this message resonated with you, if you felt a flicker of recognition, a stirring of resolve, then I ask you to share it. Share it with one persona friend from the old neighborhood who you know has felt this same quiet ache, someone at your community center who you've seen struggle with invisibility, or a family member who needs to understand your experience more deeply. Don't let this understanding die in your apartment, a solitary truth. Let it travel. Let it ripple outwards. Help us build an unseen network of people who choose to live seen, who choose to reclaim their narratives, and who understand the profound power of mutual witness. Your act of sharing is not just amplifying a video, it is extending a hand, creating a lifeline, fostering a community of quiet revolutionaries. It is a declaration that the wisdom of experience will not be silenced, but rather shared, honored, and celebrated. And that like button beneath this video? That isn't for me. It's your flag in the digital ground. It says, I was here. I am here. My attention matters. My experience is valid. It tells the algorithm, the faceless forces that shape what gets seen and what gets forgotten online, that stories for and about us, about the richness and complexity of aging, about the power of enduring wisdom, have immense value. Plant your flag. Let it be a beacon for others who are searching for connection, for affirmation, for a voice that speaks to their reality. It is a collective statement of presence, a small but mighty act of digital sovereignty that signals to the wider world that you are here, you are vibrant, and you are not to be overlooked. This is also where we make it real, where we transition from individual liberation to collective empowerment. Comment my story matters below. Just that. Simple, direct, powerful. Let's create a scroll of affirmation, a living testament that anyone feeling invisible can read and instantly feel less alone, more connected, more understood. Your words here become part of someone else's lifeline, a silent, powerful hand reaching out across the digital divide. And beyond that, ask your questions. Share your insights. This is our conversation now, a sacred space where the wisdom of many can illuminate the path for all. Your unique perspective, your struggles, your triumphs, they all contribute to the rich tapestry of this shared journey of reclamation. This is not just a comment section, it is a community forum, a place for mutual upliftment, a digital hearth around which we can all gather and warm our spirits. And finally, save this video. Bookmark it. Return to it. This is your field guide to remaining a whole, vibrant, respected person in a world that, at times, tries to turn you into a concept, a demographic, an afterthought. When the silence feels too loud, when the subtle slights begin to dim your light, when you feel that familiar ache of being overlooked, come back here. Replay Step 2, the 60-second reclamation ritual. Let my voice, and more importantly, the echo of your own rediscovered truth, remind you of your own inherent, unshakable worth. Let this be a touchstone, a constant reminder that you possess the tools, the wisdom, and the inherent right to define your own narrative. The final choice, in these magnificent chapters of your life, is not between activity and passivity.
It is between curation and abandonment.
You are the curator of your final exhibit, the exhibit of your own extraordinary life, rich with experiences, lessons, and boundless love. Will you let others write the placards that explain you, reducing your complex story to a few trite phrases, or will you write them yourself, with all the nuance, power, and truth they deserve? This protocol is your pen. This moment is your opportunity. You have lived too much, loved too hard, and survived too long to become a ghost in your own life, a whispered memory in someone else's story. Take the pen. Write one true sentence today. Then write another tomorrow. This is how we reclaim not just our stories, but our very souls, ensuring that the legacy of your unique being shines brightly, powerfully, and enduringly. Now, go forth and be, gloriously and unapologetically, here.